Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and happy Fool's Day to everyone out there. I have a very exciting crossover episode with a very special guest, Sydney, whose last name I forgot to get on how to pronounce.
That's okay. Kjerstad.
Kjerstad. I thought it was, but I wasn't sure if the K or the J was silent.
The J is silent, yeah.
Okay, Kjerstad. Well, thank you, Sydney. She's with Smart Game Piano, which is a really exciting concept. Essentially, from what I've seen on your show, you help people learn video game music, kind of like in a Guitar Hero way, but with a piano.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
I help people learn piano, and I think it's so much more than that. I think I help them find this creative outlet to sharpen themselves both mentally and emotionally in a world where I think it kind of discourages us to be passive in pretty much everything. We can go onto our phones and get onto Spotify and listen, or YouTube, and listen to whatever we want. And people are missing out on the creative process of making music, of discovering things. And so my goal is to, yes, teach you how to play piano on video, or piano through video game music, but it's also to make you better, to make you stronger, more mentally fit, more mentally well.
Which is awesome, and something I absolutely agree with you on. There is a part of me that wishes that my family had pushed me more towards music as a hobby, at the very least, right? Maybe not a career, but definitely like some sort of outlet. My creative outlet came through athletics and drama club, actually, so I was very much into the acting space and telling jokes. I remember a talent show I did in 4th grade, and I was a comedian.
That's really cute.
I like looking back, that's adorable. I'm like, no wonder my mom was all for it. But being up on stage and remembering that was horrifying, and I did terrible. Like,
I'm sure you didn't. I'm sure it's way better than you think it is.
Well, thank you. And clearly you are a proponent for a creative outlet like this.
Absolutely.
I think one of our big goals today is to get the word out there that music is kind of a necessity in life. Yeah.
I would even take the kind of out. It is a necessity. And for you did athletics and drama, which is great, which is awesome. I, choose piano because, that's my main instrument. That's my instrument of choice. That's what I know. That's what I'm passionate about. And people come up with excuses all the time to not learn music. Like, I don't have the time, it's too expensive, and they are legitimate. I'm not here to invalidate I can't do that. And you still got to do it. It is super, super important that you have this musical outlet, because if you think about it, you're not going to get that time back. The months you spent, I don't have time, I'm too busy at work, you're never going to get that back. And it's just going to get harder and harder for you to keep your mind sharp, to give yourself that creative outlet, and to give yourself some sort of emotional place that you can go. So you need to do it the sooner rather than later. I was actually thinking about back in college, I took a personal finance class. This is a weird analogy. But my professor was very, very adamant. He's like, I hear people all the time, no, you can start saving when you're 30 for retirement. It's fine. And he looked us dread in the eye and like, no, you need to start after you graduate. You need to do this. You need to start investing now. And he showed the math for it. I'm like, oh, okay. Yep. Yeah. Same thing with piano. You need to do this now, or you're just not going to get as much back from it as you would have before.
Right. Well, there have been numerous studies over the years that show how much playing any instrument really, it's great for memory. It's great for hand-eye coordination, of which I have zero. Things like that. It's really an awesome outlet, and I love that you're on the forefront of this. And the best part, to me personally, in my opinion, that you're doing here is ensuring that it's something kids want to do. My cousin played piano when we were little, and I specifically remember going to piano lessons with her at the church, and it was really boring, and the teacher was really strict. She might as well have taken a ruler, that's not fun for a kid necessarily. She really got out of playing. She still has retained that skill, which I'm impressed with, because not everyone does. But she's got a little bit of that, but she never really honed that passion because it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
So this is this is really fun. What a great concept.
I'm glad. Yeah, I teach in studio too in the town. I live in Fort Collins, and I had this new student. I also teach guitar, and she came in for guitar lessons, and she was shaking during her lesson. And I'm like, "Are you okay? Like, do you need water? Like, what's going on?" She's like, "Oh no, I'm just terrified because my previous piano teacher was super, super mean." And I'm just like, great, awesome. I'm so glad that you were traumatized
Right?
by music lessons. And that's not the first instance that's happened, unfortunately. So my philosophy is if it's a chore, then it's on the teacher. Obviously, you have to put in the work. Obviously, you have to put in the minutes, the hours to practice. But if you're bored, not having fun, then it's a bad lesson. It's a bad teacher.
Yeah.
And that sounds pretty harsh, but I believe that. So I think that's why Smart Game Piano is different, because it's more like a game. Because it has that floating, not the falling keys, the falling colors and the note names. It's like, oh, I can match this, I can do this. And Smart Game Piano actually implemented a new like badge system. I don't know how familiar you are with like trophies on PS4 or Xbox at all.
So I'm not a big gamer, but yes, I am familiar with trophies in games in general.
So essentially, like, hey, you did this thing, good for you. Here's a trophy saying you did that. We do that on Smart Game Piano too. Like, hey, you beat an easy level song. Here's a badge for you. Because I play games. Like when you get a shiny new badge from like a Pokemon gym or whatever, you're just like, I did it. So you know, I want to make it like a game. I want it to be something that people can take a fun approach to, something that they feel like they can beat and want to go over and want to do. If they're dreading going to the piano lesson, then I have failed them.
Yeah. Which I think is kind of a key outlook. I'm going to take that kind of out of there as well. That's definitely a key outlook. I think we're moving into a space, teacher-wise, across the board, no matter what you're teaching, whether it's music or history class, whatever that is. I think we're moving more in this space of like making it fun and relatable. Because you're doing yourself a disservice to future musicians and future historians, right? If you're not making this something that can be a passion for someone,
Right.
then you're failing the future.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, so I had a friend who taught guitar lessons, and it was at the peak of Guitar Hero coming out. And he would get very frustrated because kids would come to him and they'd be like, I played Guitar Hero all week. And he's like,
Aw.
that is not how you learn guitar. And he'd get pretty annoyed with that.
Right.
I imagine with the piano, that's quite different and probably makes the process of learning piano easier.
Yeah. What I love about piano, it's a very visual instrument. So for visual learners, it's a great instrument. Be like, oh, look at this button. A sound comes out. Guitar is a little bit harder because you have to pluck the string here and hold something up here in order to make one pitch. So piano is, in a sense, easier that way. So, and unlike Guitar Hero where you have 5 buttons, piano, you got 88 buttons. But since you're seeing everything come down, you actually can do the Guitar Hero thing more accurately than Guitar Hero does.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
Okay. That sounded confusing coming out. But I can imagine him getting very frustrated at the students coming from that Guitar Hero space. But that just goes to show the game approach, again, is a great way of doing things. And I hope he found a way around that.
Yes,
I hope he did.
Eventually, yeah, he eventually got there. He's very successful now, and he's doing well. And I think him implementing that, yes, you know what, play Guitar Hero, it's fun. But when you're done with that, go pluck a few strings on the guitar and take some time to practice with a real guitar.
Yeah, because it's more fun, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to talk, so one of the things that I do on my show, obviously, is to get people to talk about their backgrounds and how they built the business that they're in. So let's talk a little bit. We're going to step back and talk about the creation of Smart Game Piano.
Okay. So I was fresh out of grad school, 2015, went to NYU, studied scoring for film and multimedia. Very good experience. I learned a lot, and a lot of that actually did transfer to Smart Game Piano. Was living upstate New York, and was looking for jobs to do. Ran across my now partner, who wanted to teach piano tutorials online. He wanted to teach gospel music. Told him, sure, I'm down. But video game music is my one true love. And he's like, let's just do that then, which I'm very grateful for. Because I think he saw that that's where my passion was, that's where my love was. And we are big advocates of being believers in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if we don't believe in what we're doing, there's not a point in doing it. And I really believe video game music is a way to get people excited about learning an instrument. And that's really Smart Games Piano's goal, is to get people to realize I can make myself better. And this is a super fun avenue, super pertinent, super relevant way of doing that. Because video game real music is like, we're in an era where the nerds are the cool kids nowadays.
Which is exciting.
It's great. I love it. I was not a cool kid in high school, but now I feel like a cool kid.
Yeah.
But so like people are going to YouTube to listen to video game music all the time. Other YouTubers and content creators are using video game music as their background. People are learning it beforehand, are learning it on their own. There are forums where people share their own sheet music, share their own performances. And so we started giving people a little bit more structure. I love the internet so much. It is also a great place for people to put inaccurate and bad tutorials on as well. And if I may toot my own horn, I think my tutorials are better than most out there for video game music specifically, because, you know, video games weren't taken seriously way back when. Now they are. Like we have AAA companies that are being scored by big orchestras that are recorded in abbey roads and big churches and stuff like that. So I take that seriousness of my music training to this and cater it to people who are beginners, who don't know how to read sheet music, who don't have that musical background. Be like, you can do this too. Music's not an ivory tower that's unattainable or impossible. Like, you can do it. It needs to be accessible.
I like that you keep saying people, because I immediately, when we were talking about doing the show and getting together, and you mentioned we'll have a musical snack later, but I immediately thought that ship had sailed for me. Right?
Okay.
As an avenue to learn music at all. I love music. My father really instilled an appreciation for good music and what that looks like. And my sister played the clarinet. I had cousins that play piano and trumpet, and I feel like I'm the only non-musical person in my family. And so I just kind of like have put that out of my head. But I'm also looking for a hobby. So maybe this can be my new hobby.
I think it can, and I think it should be. I'm very biased towards learning the piano or any instrument in particular, and that ship has not sailed. It really, really hasn't. Sure, you don't have like your little 6-year-old spongy brain anymore, but that doesn't mean you can't learn it. And that's the whole point of Smart Game Piano. Like, yeah, kids are more interested in learning that stuff, but I do keep the older adults, the older beginners in mind. Like, hey, you can do this. Like, I'm not going to be that mean, like, Russian teacher yelling at you for not getting that note right. I'm going to show you how it's done. And it's accessible. You can do it. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how inexperienced you are. You can do it.
Which is amazing to hear.
Yeah.
I like hearing that personally. So I'm excited to learn some things today. You mentioned that video game music is your passion. Quite obviously, there's a story there for why video game music is more your taste and your way to get that education across the world.
So as I said, I was a super cool kid in high school. So my hobby was staying in my basement and playing video games when I wasn't doing homework or play piano. I played soccer too. That was like my normal kid thing. But I realized, so one of my favorite games in high school was Final Fantasy X. And I've been playing piano pretty much since I was a wee thing, since I was 6 years old, just sitting there playing it. And then I realized it clicked at some point, like, oh, that's piano. Like, there's a very beautiful track in the opening of the game called To Xanarkand. It's just solo piano. It's very lovely, very gorgeous. And it just, my 14-year-old brain was like, oh, they can be at the same thing, because I liked them separately, but when I discovered they can be together, it just kind of blew my mind. And that's how I knew, like, I want to do music. Like, I want to do video game music specifically. And video game music, it's hard to call it a genre. simply because you can have any style of music in any style of video game. You can have, that 8-bit stuff, which most older people tend to think that's the video game sound. I'm like, it is, and it's so much more. But you can have solo piano, you can have an orchestra, you can have a funk band, you can have a DJ, pretty much. Like, that's what racing games are. It's just thrown in and some pop music in there.
Yeah. Or my favorite, the Disney movie games that would come out.
Fun.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. So I love hearing this, and I love your passion for this. I'm going to ask you, this might sound mean,
Okay.
but there are, I think that we all have these, there's certain majors in college that some people tend to think aren't the best or most rewarding when they get out.
Sure.
I believe one of those is liberal arts degree.
Sure.
Right? It's kind of, there's kind of a running joke behind that.
Yeah, I have one of those. So,
right,
yeah.
right, exactly. Communications. It's one of those that can be used anywhere.
Pretty much.
You just got to spin it right on your resume, really. But I would say that some people would say music, theater, right? Those kind of arts-driven diplomas, degrees.
Right.
If you are going to go for those, unless you're going to be on a symphony or like you have something in mind, it can be kind of hard to make a real life choice about your future career.
Yeah.
So you have a unique career path that you really carved yourself, which to me is amazing, and I love hearing about.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
yeah,
that.
of course. I love hearing about unique career paths. It's one that I've done. I've had many past careers, but
Yeah.
let's talk about yours and advice maybe for people who know that they want to go for music but are just going to go for the backup of law or
Sure.
what have you.
I would say if you're going to pursue a music degree, know that I think pursuing music affects your self-esteem in a way no other degrees kind of do. Obviously, like as a doctor, like you're needed in society. We absolutely need you. And people say, well, we don't need musicians. And I'm just like,
You're wrong.
yes, exactly. Like, okay, well, let's take away your iTunes. Let's take away your radio and see how much you don't need it.
What is this? Footloose? The
Thank
town
you.
of Footloose? Right?
Right, thank you. So I would say if you want to pursue music, a degree is fine. And I will also say it's not the piece of paper that really makes you you. I also write music on the side. I'm writing for a couple different medias right now, and those people who I'm writing for do not care what my degree is. The degree is there for me, for my skills, for my experience. So if you're going to pursue it, don't do it for the piece of paper. Do it to make the connections, collaborate with as many people as you can, and once you graduate, there is the internet. There's so many things out there. If you feel like you didn't get enough from your college education, there's so many free resources. Like one thing I love about the library system up in Fort Collins, the Poudre Valley Library, is if you're got a library card there, you have lynda.com for free. Find those ways to get those educational resources. There's so much more out there than you think. Yes, I learned a lot from my degrees, my master's and my bachelor's, by learning music, and that is so pertinent. I learned so much from YouTube tutorials too. So if you're a musician pursuing that degree, that's not going to be your only university. That's not going to be your only classroom. Be open to all the different new things. And I'm sure people who are maybe inspired to go into music are inspired by, maybe music theater. Maybe they saw a YouTuber that they really like, that they really appreciate. And don't copy anybody else. Definitely try to flatter them and just be like, I love this. I'm going to do a cover, and you'll learn a lot about them and yourself. Definitely learn, study, do covers, but also don't try to copy anybody else.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I feel like it's just, there's so many different types of music. It's not one answer fits all for people pursuing it.
Of course not. But I appreciate that you said that there's more than your own university. You have the university of the world at your fingertips
Right.
via the internet.
Right.
So I want to say, I want to hone in a little bit more on the don't copy people. And I think I get where you're coming from. By all means, flatter your heroes and,
Right.
and make sure that you've got people that need to be, I guess, get their dues, so to speak.
Sure.
But as far as copying, do you specifically mean like I love Jimi Hendrix, so I'm going to copy his style.
Yes.
Okay.
If you want to say, I want to be the next Jimi Hendrix, or I want to be the next Beethoven, or I want to be the next Koji Kondo, which is Japanese, he's the one that wrote all the Mario music, then you're doing it wrong. So you can imitate them, study them, copy them, don't be them, be you, study them all the time, be you. If your goal to be a musician is to be famous and to get a bunch of fans, you're already doing it wrong. And that's like why I tell people you need to do this for you. You need to do this for your mental well-being, because you can do everything right and the world will be like, no, we're not going to recognize you. You still have music. You have that, and people can't take that away from you.
Awesome. Well, what are your thoughts on like American Idol, The Voice? I'm curious about that. I wasn't planning on asking you that.
Oh man, I love the bad auditions. I watch them sometimes. Those are so fun. I'm just like, some of these are fake, and I'm having a lot of fun watching them. But at the same time, it does show people who do have talent, people who are great singers. But what disappoints me about The Voice and American Idol, it doesn't really show what those people did to get there. A lot of people will think like, oh, they just showed up and then this happened to them. I'm like, no, they sang at their church choir, they played piano for a little bit, maybe they learned a bit of guitar. They gave themselves that outlet, and that's why they seem like, like they just did it, because they have all that time beforehand. So love, hate.
Love, hate.
Yeah.
Love, hate. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot can be said for reality shows and how real they are.
Exactly.
Yes. So I want to know how others might be able to get involved with Smart Game Piano. Perhaps, obviously, I can go and look at any of your tutorial videos and learn from there.
Right.
But how else can a business get involved? Would you? Any investment opportunities? Tell me more.
Not right now, unfortunately, but that is something we are looking to do in the future. We do want to expand. We're still very, very small, and a lot of us, still have our other jobs to do this. It's not just me. It's a team of other amazing people that I work with, and I'm really grateful are in my life. So we are hoping to do more of that in the future. Maybe it's not just Smart Game Piano. We also have 2 sister channels, Smart Classical Piano and Smart Kids Piano. So the biggest thing you do is obviously sign up and just, be a part of it. If you need to if you want to learn for Elise, go to Igor's channel, who runs Smart Classical Piano, and learn from there. Like, just spend a month, learn a song. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You can play a piano song now? Great. Our evil plan is mostly just to get you playing piano, essentially. So
I like that you call it evil.
It is so evil. So diabolical. And I hope to be doing more collaborations in the future. I would maybe, and this is further down the road, maybe work with some private schools or private studios, be like, hey, like, you can also have access to Smart Game Piano and get access to all the sheet music that we have too. It's not there right now, unfortunately, but we'd like to get there.
Yes. Awesome. Well, hopefully we see more of that in the future. And I, for one, am a huge fan of what I've seen so far.
Oh, thank you.
And if only for me, again, I don't have the passion for music. I'm gonna start learning.
Yeah.
I need a new hobby. But that being said, I love the entrepreneurial side of what you're doing. Content creator, as you have dubbed yourself,
Right.
and super respectable title there, because that is
Thank you.
what you are doing is creating, and you clearly have a passion for it, and you're going to take over the world with music. I have firm belief in that.
Thank you. Yes, I called my group Smartest, and I said, we're going to take over the world.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Pinky? Taking over the world. We do it every night.
We do it every night, Pinky. I get that reference.
I'm glad you do. I'm glad you do. We're going to take a quick break here on Connect and Collaborate, so stay with us. Again, Sydney Kjerstad with Smart Game Piano. We will have more in the description below, so be sure to check her out on this break. We'll be right back.
Hello there, all you video gaming piano players. I am not in my studio. This is something a little different. I am talking here with Alex Hopkins from Connect and Collaborate, the podcast of the Colorado Business Roundtable. And we're essentially going to discuss today why we need music, how creative outlets such as piano, music, what have you, is absolutely necessary in this day and age. And we're just going to go from there. We're just going to have fun. We're going to talk. And at the end of it, I'm going to teach her how to play a Mario song. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be great. So Alex, just so my audience knows what's going on, tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are, and what's your deal.
Wonderful. So I am Alex Hopkins. I am the producer and host for Connect and Collaborate, the Colorado Business Roundtable. It's the voice of the Colorado Business Roundtable. So essentially, I host a show Monday through Friday on Drive Time Radio. I don't know if many of your youngsters know radio anymore, but it's on an AM station, 1690 AM. Here in Denver, but we also air on our YouTube channel every day, and we have a podcast. You can upload that on Podbean, Stitcher, iTunes, all the places. And so actually, I was super flattered. You contacted me in a really, really cool way.
Yeah, how about you tell that story?
Yeah, so actually, so you addressed it to Colorado Business Roundtable, and I am the media arm, essentially, for COBRT. But we have two other team members, president and then our member outreach executive, Lisa, and she came into my office and she has this envelope, and it's a note and an iPhone, but not a real iPhone, like a display iPhone. Yeah. And it was so cute, and it had this note that was like, "Call me, I made a video for you." And so we actually give it to my creative director because if we were going to lose a computer due to a virus, we wanted it to be his.
I didn't think about that either. Oh my God, I'm feeling really bad now.
Please don't feel bad, because it was adorable. It caught our attention immediately, and so it was a heartfelt video. And by heartfelt, I mean you clearly had found something that like piqued your interest, and it forced you to reach out, which is awesome. I think that's amazing. And so we checked it out, and so then I contacted you, and I was like, "Oh my God, that was really cool." And I told you we thought I was a bum.
That also made me feel really bad. So we're actually not going to do phones anymore.
It actually worked out because we all touched it immediately. It's not
okay,
we didn't like put gloves on or anything.
Gotcha.
We handled it like it was a real phone. But it was a really interesting way to reach out. And so one of the best things that I get to do is to allow people a platform to talk about their creative industries or their entrepreneurship or certain events that big companies have going on. Philanthropy is one of the big things we talk about in here too. So it was really exciting for you to reach out, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I like been more vigilant of looking up video games, I probably would have come across you and asked you to be on the show anyway." So.
Well, that's really sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
But what draws me about Connect and Collaborate is because you're having discussions with people. Yeah, you're talking about business. Yeah, you're talking about legislation. You're talking about people primarily.
Yeah.
Because that's really the goal at the end of the day. What do we do to make ourselves better? What do we do to make ourselves more functional? And business, obviously, is a great way of doing that. Make sure we all have money so we can all buy food and like housing. But the conversations you have go so much more in depth, and I think that's what I appreciate about what you're doing here. And I feel like I think she needs to hear about piano and video game music. Like, just the crazy person that I am, like, we need to talk about why music is so important. So like I wanted to ask you, how much do you know about the world of video games and like its influence on culture nowadays?
Interesting that you asked that. So we had a regular Nintendo and a Super Nintendo growing up, and I grew up with a sister who's 7 years older than I am. So there was quite a bit of distance between us, and so we played those two video game consoles. But we never really graduated past that. I never got into the Sega Genesis. I never got into the PlayStation myself. So personally speaking, video games kind of fell off the wayside, and the Wii came out, and I got a little more excited again, right? And like I could be physical with it, and be bowling and tennis and like all the fun things. And it brought the old school Mario back into my life. But I have a roommate who's super into like PC gaming. Yes. And so I've seen it over the years, and like he can spend hours doing that, and like, but I hear him and he's talking to people, and really it's way more of an outlet than I would say like most social media, right? Like I can like your stuff on Instagram or whatever,
right?
But I can interact with you.
Yes.
In a game. So I feel like it has more of a social aspect than it used to, obviously.
Absolutely.
With technology. But more and more we're seeing these video games playing an actual role in education, and which is super exciting to see. I think a lot of people, late 90s, early 2000s, video games got a bad rep.
Yes.
right? That was when we started to see school shootings and things like that. And a lot of that also got blamed on rap and other outlets and dark metal music, obviously. But video games got blamed in that.
It did.
And which made me really sad, actually, even at the time. Even though I wasn't a big gamer, I was like, I don't feel like that's right at all.
Right.
If we're talking violence, go watch the news. Like, it's
Yeah.
everywhere. But it's really cool to see. And I've watched both my niece and nephew grow up with, like, leapfrogs and things like that. So they may not be considered video games,
but they have that game element, you know?
Exactly. And so you can implement that. And I think more schools are even adopting this video game style.
I think so. I liked many points you talked about there. In terms of like the whole social media thing, Snapchat is actually doing a new game thing. I'm not sure what it is exactly. They're announcing it next month, I believe. They're actually working with developers to like bring games onto Snapchat. I don't know how that's going to work, but I am interested to see how it's doing, because I think social media is like, yes, connection, also gaming, because there's a huge community in that. And yeah, the whole video games cause violence thing is nonsense. It's
nonsense.
Silly.
Yeah.
One of my favorite arguments against that was like, chess is a game about war. I'm pretty sure humans are just violent. like yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Like,
really valid. I've not heard that, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that was like one of my favorite arguments. Like, yep, it made so much sense.
Yeah.
And you're saying that you talked about the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo. One huge thing that brings people into smart game piano is the nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
That's the comment I get most of the time after I upload a tutorial or performance. They're like, oh, OMG, the nostalgia. Because nostalgia is an extremely, extremely powerful phenomenon in people. And same thing happens in music. You go to someone who is suffering from Alzheimer's, you play them a song from their youth, their childhood, and they light up. It's like they are themselves again for a few more minutes. And so music is so much more powerful than I think people are actually talking about. Like, you see, like, oh my God, music is my life. Music is so powerful. Like, yes, and I don't really think people are really talking about the benefits of music. So I was wondering, how often do you talk about creative outlets with your other guests, or maybe musical outlets with your other guests, if they bring that up at all?
Rarely, actually, which kind of makes me sad. And the more that I thought about our show here and how we were going to go about this, and your passion for making sure everyone knows piano, I don't get enough people that tell me about their creative outlets. And a lot of times, as we mentioned, we're talking public policy and business and things like that. But I have had a few guests over the years. We actually did a whole week on the business of music, which was really exciting.
That is cool.
Yeah, and so one of the bigger things that we have, Take Note Colorado, which was funded by Governor Hickenlooper. So that one was, the point of that program was to make sure that every student had access to musical instruments and a music class. And as you've seen over the years, we've ebbed and flowed with this, but a lot of people think that music or arts education needs to be the first to be cut in programs in schools, particularly K through 12, which is just so sad to me, because those are looked upon as hobby classes rather than job bearing classes, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Which is so frustrating, because as we've demonstrated here, and as I'm sure you've seen many people graduate and go into music careers, whether or not they realize they're music careers.
Right.
But I do agree with you. It makes a difference, and I should probably ask. That should be a question I ask all of my guests. Just,
right.
Yeah, do you play any instruments, and do you have a musical outlet in your life?
Right. And it blows my mind that people, I mean, I shouldn't say it blows my mind. It's not surprising that people cut the arts and music, because they're not looking at the actual benefits that music does.
Right.
If you look at many like successful, famous people that are out there, most of them have a creative outlet, and a lot of them play an instrument. Like Steve Martin is an obvious example right there.
Banjo player, man.
Yeah.
Amongst many other.
Who else does that? Like, that's great. I know Bill Gates plays an instrument. Warren Buffett plays the ukulele, which I'm like, really? Ukulele? All right. But there's so many people that play instruments, because music is so much more than career. And I think if people change their minds of music is just a way for you to get famous, for you to get attention, for you to like pursue a career where you're going to eat ramen noodles for the rest of your life, then I think there will be more willingness and people to pursue it, because you need music. You need those soft skills. You need those creative skills of being able to problem solve in a way that, you know, a math equation can't teach you.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I like that you said creative outlet, because I don't think a lot of people, like, all of the piano players that I've met in my life have been playing for years, right? My cousin's the only one that I saw from day one of her piano
Which is cool.
career, which is very cool.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see. But that being said, everyone that I know has already gotten that outlet, and so I think a lot of people take that for granted. Once you've got that skill and you have that outlet, you kind of forget about the passion that you have behind that. You don't share that part of your story with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps you'll pull a guitar out at a party or something like that, and that's really cool, but at the same time, like, talk about your passion. Get that out there.
Right.
That's what people want to know.
Right. And it's got to be a passion that you're willing to share with others, I think, because we're in an age where the world is smaller, so people are getting bombarded with information constantly. And I think people are getting bombarded with not always sincere information. And I think people who do play instruments and who do play guitar and piano are doing better at sharing it. And I wish it was more of an output, like, hey, I have this for me. I need this for me. Like, I'm actually like a business person, and this makes me happy. This makes me well. Actually, one of the smartest, I call them smartest on Smart Game Piano, like smart artists. It's cute. Ron, he has been on Smart Game Piano for a while. He told me in his business, he lives up in Canada. They do like a monthly newsletter, and they actually selected him to interview because he talked about how he played piano. And just like, that's great. That's a great way to share it. And hopefully that inspires other people to play piano, because they really absolutely need that outlet. And I think I agree. I think people who do play the instrument take it for granted, because you hear people all the time who haven't learned an instrument. I think you expressed something similar today, like, I totally regret that I'm not musical. I totally regret that I haven't learned an instrument. No one who knows an instrument says, oh man, I really regret that I can play, you know, a Bach prelude, or, you know, I really regret that I can like hash out this Moonlight Sonata. Nobody says that.
Yeah.
So yes, I think it's good to fight against the complacency of, oh, it's just a thing you do. It is, and it's so much more.
Yes, there is so much more. So gosh, there's so much to talk about when it comes to creativity and music, and I do regret not learning any instruments, but you're going to teach me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so earlier we were talking about, you know, video game music and how like powerful it is and everybody remembers it, and then Alex just goes da-na-na-na-na-na. So
It's the one video game music that because I hate it. I hated that with the underground world. I hated it. It was like, oh, I can't beat this level. And so that one,
a strong visceral
Yeah.
emotional reaction. So we're going to
I'm going to conquer this song.
Yes. What is that called? Like therapy, when you like go to it.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
like where you like the hands-on.
Like, you're scared of it, so we're gonna
like
exposed therapy. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
So this is exposed therapy here. We're gonna do the underground thing, but we're just gonna do the first little bit. So it's there we go. There's some sound there. So all they are in octaves, and what that means. Do you know what octaves means?
I know there's 8 of them.
There are. Yes. That's what that means. There's 8
Do, re, mi,
notes.
fa, sol, la, ti.
Yeah.
Okay.
So an octave is essentially when you play a note that's like the same letter. So here's a C and there's a C. They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 apart. This Mario song right here is just a bunch of octaves. Octave, octave, octave.
Okay.
That's all that it is. And so you're going to play this C followed by this C first.
All right. Does hand placement matter?
For this teeny tiny piano, I don't think so. Not too much. Yeah, so, yep. Oh, you can beat it up. It doesn't have to be. It's fine. There you go. So, da-da, and then down to here, which is A, da-da.
Okay, so C.
And then up to B flat.
Okay.
Yay. And
Okay.
then C, C, A, B flat, B flat.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay. C. C.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yay. And so let's do it one more time.
Okay.
So you did kind of da-da, da-da, da-da. Try to get a little more even more. Da-da, da-da, da-da.
Okay.
I think you can do it.
So the tail end should
Yes,
match
it's
up.
all seamless. Da
Okay.
da 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 da
Okay.
da. You're doing great. It's a valiant start. It's a valiant effort.
Yeah, no musical talent whatsoever.
Oh
All right.
my gosh, bull honky. I'm calling bull honky on
All
that
right,
right now.
I gotta do one more. 'Cause
Yes.
I gotta get this.
You
down.
got it.
All right.
Right
Oops.
here.
Oh, no.
You got it. Here, I'll help you out.
Thanks. Okay.
Yay.
Okay.
There you go.
It's getting better. It's
Yeah.
getting better.
It'll happen. Yeah, and that's one thing. So you were saying, oh my gosh, I have no musical talent. Oh my gosh, I can't do this. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yes.
That's one thing I try to tell my students all the time. Like, I don't care about your age. I don't care about your experience. We're going to do this. You can do it. And I think that's another thing that stops people from learning piano, that stops them from having this thing they absolutely need is this self-deprecation.
Yes.
So my dad started picking up the fiddle a couple years ago because,
Yeah.
good for him.
Why
It's great. And
Is he going to Georgia with the devil anytime soon?
He should be, but I think he would beat the devil.
Oh,
So,
good.
yeah.
Okay, good. Confidence there. I like it.
But I told him, like, when he first started, he's like, oh, it's it's not that bad. Like, oh, I don't, like, I'm able to get his sound out. And, like, I was actually really kind of getting mad at those comments. I'm like, you know what, Dad? You're not going to improve if you keep up this like self-modest deprecation thing there. There's something that needs to be said about, hey, I'm going for this. I am going to learn this. And I told him, like, I will help you because I know enough about violin to help him out with like some rhythm and some stuff like that. And I told him that if I hear any of that nonsense here, I'm not helping you. And to his credit, he hasn't done any of that, so I'm really grateful for that. But that's one thing I also try to encourage people is you can do more than you think. You can learn more than you think, and playing that instrument is proof of that, I think. And that's
Yeah.
why I think everybody needs to have that instrument. Just like, okay, if you're having a bad day, stuff's not going well at work, sit down at the piano. I got this at least. I can do this at least. Like, my boss can't come in here and tell me I can't do this because, gosh dang it, I can. There's some sort of outlet, and I think needs there. And with whatever time we have left, I'd like to talk about like what you think the benefits are of music. If you have any thoughts or feelings on that, I'd like to discuss that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually was just writing down self-confidence here.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things in business, when you have self-confidence, one of the things that I preached to myself, I was trying to think if that's the right tense.
Sure.
But one of the things that I would say to myself all the time is fake it until you make it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, boss, but but essentially that's what you're doing. Especially, I changed careers about 2 years ago, and so I did a 180, and I feel like I'm in a creative industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do talk about business and policy, but I'm in a creative industry, and it's really exciting to be there. But I got my self-confidence from faking it until I made it. You can't do that with music.
Yeah.
So I feel like that self-confidence actually gets built.
Yes.
Right? I'm not, and there is something to be said about the psychology of both. There's something to be said about that faking it until you make it. Like, if you
There's
find
a time and a place for it.
Right. If you find yourself kind of in a depressive, like you're having a blue Monday, if you smile all day, eventually you're actually going to start to feel like you're in a good mood.
Sure.
There is psychology behind that. That being said, building that self-confidence with music is something that is irreplaceable with anything else.
Yes, I
Yeah.
completely agree. I remember, I can't remember where I read this, but someone said he was a fitness coach, and he said you cannot fake being in shape.
Right.
It's very obvious if you're in shape or not. And not just in appearance, but, in your athleticism, your agility, it's very apparent whether or not you take care of your body and you work out. And his argument was, you can't fake that, so no one can take it away from you. And there's something to be said. It's not a fake it till you make it. It's like, you did this, and it's really obvious you did this, and you get to be proud of that. You should be proud of that. And I feel like music is the same way. You can't really fake playing an instrument. There's some instruments you can kind of fake more than others. We were talking about that
like
earlier.
a recorder.
Like a
perhaps.
recorder. Yeah, you can kind of muddle your way through that. But it's really obvious if you know how to play piano or not. It's really obvious if you know how to play guitar. And that's something no one can take away from you. And that in itself can really bring self-confidence. And a lot of people, I guess, stop themselves from obtaining that just because the first part is new, it's scary. I don't know if you're familiar with the cartoon Adventure Time at all. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because the character, Jake, the dog, I'm going to butcher the quote because I don't remember exactly, but he said, like, sucking at something is the first step at being good at something.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be bad at it first in order to get good at that. And that's something I don't really tell my students because I'm like, I don't want to be like, it's going to be really hard, but you got to do it. I'll be like, no, you can do it. You can do it. You have to do it. Because if you tell them like, yeah, you're going to suck for a while, who wants to hear that?
Wants to know that.
No.
I already know that about it. Like,
Right.
I know that this isn't great, but,
Right.
but I'm here to get better.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I tell them, you're here to make yourself better. Like, and your piano skills are just going to get better on the side. Focus on you. And that's what I tell them all the time. You are the number one reason for learning an instrument. You need to work on you.
I like that. I like hearing that. I actually, you asked what my opinion was as far as music is concerned and perhaps in the business side of things. And so the number one thing for me, I think self-confidence, that fake it, make it versus real built self-confidence. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is if you look at famous musicians or actors that also have that musical talent, there's something to be said there about that creative outlet sparking some talent in other areas.
Yes.
Does
Okay.
that makes sense? I think a lot of times once you master one skill, it's easier to master another creative skill.
Yes.
Which has been really exciting. And so, like I said, I entered into a creative space and I do a lot of writing and things like that. So maybe I can foray over into the music world.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. I tell my students all the time, like, I got piano lessons, but I self-taught myself guitar, ukulele, how to sing. And, that's a very musical example, but it also helped me look into, more video production, recording, stuff like that. And because what you're doing when you're learning music, you're actually quite literally creating neural pathways in your brain to problem solve. And it's the same way with your thing. Your writing is going to affect music. May not be super direct and obvious, but it will. There's actually, I spent some time in school learning Spanish. I have forgotten all of it, and I hate myself for it.
5 years.
God, gotta go back into it. But I remember one teacher telling me learning another language actually does change your mindset and how you think. And it's really hard to come up with a way to fully explain that because you think a certain way and thinking in another language suddenly changes how you view the world. I argue that music is very, very similar like that. There's actually a YouTuber, I can't remember if it was Adam Neely, who wrote an article, did something like that, talking about how music does function as a language, essentially. So when you learn music, you do actually think about things differently. I don't have anything to compare that to because I've been playing piano since I was 6 years old, so I'd love to have that. But I really want to start asking more people, what was it like pre-piano? Okay, what's it like now? So that's also part of my evil plan. Just like, how's your life different? How's your life different? Is it better? I want to hear it.
I think that it will be a lot better. But I agree with you. I definitely think music is a language in and of itself, for sure. There's, and a lot of creative outlets are languages in and of themselves.
They really are.
I think before we go, I'm going to try this one more time.
Yes, let's do this. Okay. Okay, I got you.
Okay. Ooh.
You can beat it up. It's fine.
I know. Yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yay!
That was probably the best. I'm going to end on the best note.
Yes, you got it. Okay, well, awesome. Great. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today. I know that was a lot different than what I usually do, but I'm going to do more of this. I want to do more of this. Talking is about music and why you need it is a discussion that needs to be happening. And I hope out you go to your friends and your family and people you can be like, hey, you need a creative outlet. Do this for yourself. It's just, you gotta. So thank you so much, everybody. And as always, music is wonderful for your mental well-being, for your strength, and happy practicing.